New York City was quiet that night, almost too quiet. The rain fell softly, washing the streets where blood had been spilled so many times before. John Wick, the man everyone whispered about, had returned once again. Not for revenge this time, but for something bigger. Far across the city, in a dimly lit apartment, a woman watched the same rain through her window. Her name was Evelyn Shaw, played by Sandra Bullock. Once a top assassin of the high table, she had disappeared years ago, faking her death to escape the endless cycle of violence. But peace never lasted long for people like her. When she saw John Wick's name appear on an underground hit list, with a bounty higher than ever, something stirred inside her. John wasn't just another killer to her. Long ago, before the chaos, they had trained together under the same mentor. She remembered his calm eyes, his quiet strength, and how he had once saved her life. Now, he was being hunted by everyone, assassins, mercenaries, even those once loyal to him. And she knew the high table would never stop until John was gone. Evelyn picked up her old weapon, a sleek silver pistol, and whispered to herself, "If he's going down, he's not going down alone." Meanwhile, John was on the run again, moving through the dark alleys of Brooklyn. He could sense eyes watching him, killers waiting for a moment of weakness. But when a sniper's shot missed him by an inch, John traced its path and found a familiar mark carved on the shell casing, a small crescent moon. It was Evelyn's symbol. Was she hunting him too? Or helping him? Hours later, John entered an old, abandoned cathedral to hide from the rain and reload. The sound of footsteps echoed behind him. He turned fast, gun raised. Out of the shadows stepped Evelyn, calm, focused, her eyes sharp but filled with something strange, sorrow. "John," she said softly, lowering her weapon. "You've made quite a mess." He didn't move his gun. "And you came to clean it up?" "Maybe," she replied. "Or maybe I came to save what's left of you." The rain outside grew louder. Inside the broken church, two old assassins stood facing each other. Not as enemies, not yet as allies, but as survivors of a world that refused to let them go. The flickering candlelight in the old cathedral danced across the cracked walls. Evelyn kept her distance, watching John like someone studying a ghost. Years had passed since they'd last seen each other, but time hadn't softened either of them. "You shouldn't have come back," she said, her voice calm but edged with warning. John reloaded his pistol without answering. "Didn't plan to." Evelyn gave a faint, humorless smile. "No one ever plans to come back. The table plans it for you." For a moment, the only sound was the steady drip of water through the leaking roof. John looked at her, really looked at her. Beneath the hard stare and battle-worn face, he saw the same woman who once refused to kill a child during a mission. She had always been different. "Why are you here, Evelyn?" he asked. She hesitated. "Because someone has to even the score. The table wants you gone, John. But not just you, anyone connected to you. I've seen the list. Winston, Bowery King, even old Continental staff." John's grip tightened around his weapon. "They're cleaning house. They're burning it down," she corrected. "And they're sending someone new to do it." He frowned. "Who?" She pulled a photo from her jacket and handed it over. "A young assassin, sharp-eyed and dangerous. His name's Cashin Holt. He's trained by the same people who trained us. They call him the Hound. Once he bites, he doesn't let go." John studied the photo. "Then we stop him." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "We? Last I checked, you don't work with anyone." John looked up, his eyes cold. "You said you wanted to even the score." For a brief second, her old fire returned. "You always did know how to drag me back into hell." Before they could say more, the cathedral's front door exploded inward. 3 assassins stormed in, guns blazing. John and Evelyn dove for cover, moving in perfect sync like old times. John fired 2 quick shots, head, chest, downing one. Evelyn rolled behind a pew, took aim, and hit the second before he could reload. The third attacker lunged at John with a knife, but before he could strike, Evelyn appeared behind him and pulled the trigger. Silence returned as the body dropped. John glanced at her. "You're out of practice." She smirked. "Still better than you." They both knew this was just the beginning. The high table would not stop until both of them were erased from existence. As they left the burning cathedral, Evelyn turned to him. "We can't fight them here. We'll need allies." John nodded once. "Then we find the ones who still owe us." Under the falling rain, the 2 assassins walked into the night together, not as fugitives, but as warriors preparing for war. The next night, the city pulsed with danger. Every shadow held a gun. Every whisper carried John Wick's name. But John and Evelyn didn't stop moving. They had one goal: find allies before the High Table's army found them. They reached a quiet warehouse near the Hudson River. The metal doors creaked as John pushed them open. Inside, candles burned around a long table. Waiting there was the Bowery King, a man who ruled the streets with information instead of bullets. "Well, well," the Bowery King said with a grin. "Look what the storm blew back in, Baba Yaga himself. And he brought a ghost." Evelyn smirked. "Good to see you too, King." The Bowery King leaned forward. "You're supposed to be dead, sweetheart." "Guess I'm bad at following orders," she replied. John placed a small gold marker on the table, a blood oath coin, the kind that bound assassins to their word. The king's grin faded. "That's old business, Wick. Dangerous business." "I need guns." "I need eyes," John said. "They're coming for all of us." The Bowery King's voice turned serious. "The High Table's gone mad. They're wiping clean the old names, making room for new blood. Word is they're building something bigger, a Council of Iron. Once it's done, nobody will challenge them again." Evelyn crossed her arms. "Then we take them down before that happens." The king chuckled. "You two against the world? You'll need more than vengeance, darling." John's stare was sharp as steel. "We'll find what we need." The Bowery King sighed, then nodded. "Fine. I'll give you safe passage and weapons. But remember, the table has spies everywhere. Trust no one." As John and Evelyn prepared to leave, the king stopped her. "You sure you're ready for this, girl? You disappeared for a reason." She glanced at John, then back at the king. "I owe him. And I owe myself. Time to finish what we started." Outside, they walked along the empty docks, the moon reflecting off the water. Evelyn broke the silence. "You still carry it, don't you?" John pulled a silver medallion from his pocket, the blood pact they'd made years ago. Two assassins promising to save each other's lives, no matter the cost. "I never break a promise," he said quietly. Evelyn nodded. "Then neither do I." Suddenly, a sniper's shot cracked through the night. The bullet hit the ground inches from John's foot. Both dropped into cover behind a crate. Evelyn peeked up, scanning the rooftops. "They found us already." John's eyes narrowed. "No, he found us." Far above, on a dark rooftop, stood a figure in black armor, Cashin Holt, the Hound. His red scope glowed like a burning eye. The hunt had begun. The first bullet missed by an inch. The second didn't. It shattered a crate beside Evelyn's head, sending splinters flying. John grabbed her arm and pulled her down behind cover as more gunshots echoed across the docks. "He's fast," Evelyn hissed, reloading her pistol. John peeked over the edge, just in time to see a shadow leap across the rooftops with impossible grace. Cashin Holt, the Hound, was everything they'd heard and worse. He moved like smoke, struck like lightning, and never wasted a single bullet. "He's not alone," John muttered. "There are others flanking." Evelyn closed her eyes for a second, steadying her breathing. "Then let's show them why they should have stayed home." They split apart, John moving left, Evelyn right, working together like gears in an old machine. John ducked between shipping containers, firing short bursts. Evelyn climbed up a stack of crates, using her agility to gain the high ground. From above, she picked off two assassins moving toward John's position. But then the Hound struck. He dropped from the roof, landing silently behind her. Evelyn barely turned before his hand caught her wrist, twisting her gun away. She kicked, elbowed, fought with every move she knew, but he was trained to counter everything. "You're good," Cashin said coldly, pushing her back against a container. "But outdated." Before he could pull the trigger, John appeared from behind, tackling him to the ground. The two assassins rolled, exchanging brutal blows. Cashin's knife slashed across John's shoulder, drawing blood, but John didn't stop. He struck back with the force of a man who had nothing left to lose. Evelyn recovered her weapon and joined in, firing 2 rounds that forced the Hound to retreat into the shadows. When the smoke cleared, he was gone, leaving only silence and the echo of his footsteps. John wiped the blood from his arm. "He's testing us." Evelyn nodded. "And next time, he won't miss." They regrouped at a safe house owned by an old contact, a quiet mechanic named Luca, who fixed cars for assassins who didn't want to be found. He stitched John's shoulder while Evelyn watched from across the room. "You could have left me," she said quietly. John didn't look up. "I made a promise." Luca finished the stitches and sighed. "If the Hound is in play, the table's getting desperate. They won't stop until both of you are buried." Evelyn stood, loading her gun again. "Then we stop them first." John's voice was low and certain. We need to find their command, the one pulling the strings. Luca hesitated before speaking. There's one name. The new high table enforcer, Lady Marceline. Ruthless. Untouchable. Evelyn smiled faintly. Sounds like my kind of woman. John chambered around, eyes burning with purpose. Then she's the next stop. The night outside howled like a beast, and the hunt was far from over. The city of Paris sparkled like a diamond under the night sky. But for John Wick and Evelyn Shaw, it wasn't a city of love. It was a battlefield wrapped in beauty. Lady Marceline ruled this part of the High Table's empire. She was known for her elegance and cruelty, the kind of woman who could smile while signing a death warrant. Her palace sat at the edge of the Seine River, guarded by soldiers who moved like clockwork. Inside, Lady Marceline stood before a tall window, sipping red wine. Two ghosts have resurfaced, she said to her advisor. John Wick and Evelyn Shaw. The world keeps trying to bury them, but they keep digging themselves out. Her advisor bowed. Shall I send the hound again? Marceline smiled. Not yet. Let them come to me. I want to see what makes these legends bleed. Across the river, John and Evelyn watched the palace through binoculars from an abandoned bell tower. The rain hadn't stopped since they arrived. It always seemed to follow them. That's her, Evelyn said quietly. Used to call her the Queen of Blades. I heard she once killed a man with a wine glass. John kept watching. Then we bring her a bottle. Evelyn smirked. Still making jokes even now? Helps me think, he said dryly. They moved through the shadows, cutting down guards with silent precision. Evelyn moved like water, swift, silent, graceful. John moved like thunder, unstoppable and deadly. Together, they were balance and chaos woven into one. When they reached the grand hall, Marceline was waiting. She stood at the top of a staircase, wearing a gown as dark as midnight, holding a jeweled dagger. John Wick, she said softly, her voice like silk and poison. And the lost lady herself. What a reunion. Evelyn stepped forward, her gun raised. You've got a long list of sins, Marceline. I'm here to shorten it. Marceline's laughter echoed. You think I'm the villain? I'm just following the rules you both helped create. The table is order, and you two are chaos. John's jaw tightened. Then maybe it's time to break the rules. The room erupted into violence. Marceline's guards poured in from every side. Bullets flew, glass shattered, and chandeliers fell. Evelyn dove behind a pillar, taking out two men with perfect headshots. John fought through a group of bodyguards, using every weapon within reach, guns, knives, even a broken chair leg. When the dust settled, only 3 people stood, John, Evelyn, and Marceline. She smiled, blood staining her lip. You think killing me ends this? The table is forever. John stepped closer, pressing his gun to her chest. Nothing lasts forever. A single shot rang out. Lady Marceline fell. Evelyn looked at John, her face hard but calm. Now the table will come for us both. John nodded. Then we make them regret it. Outside, the first light of dawn touched the river, turning the water red. The sun rose over Paris, but for John Wick and Evelyn Shaw, there was no peace in the light. Only more enemies waiting in the shadows. Lady Marceline was dead, but her death had set off a storm. Every assassin across Europe now had one target. Them. They hid in an old safe house beneath the catacombs, a secret place built long ago for killers who wanted to disappear. John sat at a wooden table, cleaning his gun. His movements were calm, but his eyes were tired. Evelyn stood nearby, staring at the flickering candlelight. You know what killing her means, she said. The table will send everything they have. John nodded. I know. Evelyn sighed. We can't win a war against the world, John. He looked up at her. We don't need to win. We just need to make them stop. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she whispered, That sounds like dying. John's voice was quiet. Maybe that's the only way to be free. Later that night, the catacombs trembled with the sound of footsteps. John and Evelyn drew their weapons instantly. Dozens of figures emerged from the dark. Not assassins, but familiar faces. Winston, the old Continental manager, stepped forward, his cane tapping on the stone floor. You've caused quite the chaos, Mr. Wick. Again. John raised an eyebrow. You came all this way to lecture me? Winston smiled faintly. No, my dear boy. I came because the table's grip has grown too tight. Perhaps it's time someone loosened it. Behind him stood Sophia, an old ally with her 2 trained dogs, and the Bowery King, grinning beneath his feathered coat. Evelyn's eyes widened. This was no small gathering. It was a rebellion. We've all paid the price, the king said. Now it's time the table does too. Evelyn looked around the room. Assassins, outcasts, and survivors who'd all lost something to the high table. For the first time in years, she felt something close to hope. Then we fight together, she said. John nodded. We end this. But outside, in the blackness above the city, the Hound watched through his scope, hidden on a rooftop. His mission had changed. Lady Marceline was gone, but her death had made him the new hand of the high table. He whispered into his earpiece, "They're gathering." "All of them," a cold voice replied. "Then burn them where they stand." The Hound adjusted his rifle and aimed toward the catacombs entrance. Inside, unaware of the danger, John loaded his final clip and turned to Evelyn. "Whatever happens," he said, "we finish this together." She smiled sadly. "Just like old times." Then the first explosion hit. The ground shook, the lights went out, and war came crashing down beneath Paris. The blast tore through the catacombs like thunder. Dust and fire filled the air. John Wick and Evelyn Shaw hit the ground as stone cracked above them. Screams echoed through the tunnels as assassins scrambled for cover. "The Hound's here," John growled, his voice low and steady even as chaos raged around him. Evelyn coughed through the smoke, pulling John to his feet. "Then it's time we put the dog down." They moved fast through the maze-like tunnels, guiding survivors and returning fire. Sophia's dogs attacked with fierce precision. Winston directed the wounded to safety, and the Bowery King fired from behind a broken pillar, his laughter echoing between gunshots. The high-table soldiers flooded in, black armor, red visors, moving like shadows with rifles blazing. John and Evelyn fought side by side, their movements perfectly timed. Every shot counted, every motion smooth and sharp like a deadly dance. But the Hound wasn't just another killer. He was a storm. From the far end of the tunnel, he walked in with his rifle resting on his shoulder, calm and confident, like death itself. His voice echoed through the catacombs. "Wick! Shaw! The table thanks you for gathering everyone in one place." Evelyn shouted back, "Come take your thanks, you coward." Bullets exploded again. The fight turned brutal, close range, and personal. Evelyn spun, using the tunnel walls for cover as she shot through smoke. John charged forward, striking soldiers hand to hand when his bullets ran dry. The Hound moved like a machine, never missing, never slowing. Finally, John and Evelyn cornered him in a large stone chamber filled with ancient bones. The air was thick with dust and blood. The Hound dropped his rifle and drew 2 knives. "I was trained to kill legends," he said, stepping forward. Evelyn circled him. "Then you should have brought more knives." The fight was savage. Metal clashed, boots slid on the wet floor, and every move was meant to kill. The Hound slashed John's arm, kicked Evelyn hard against a wall, and lunged again. But Evelyn wasn't done. She grabbed a broken sword from the ground and swung with fury. The blade sliced across the Hound's side. He roared in pain, turning just in time for John to fire a single shot straight into his chest. The Hound staggered back, blood dripping from his lips. He smiled through it. "You think killing me ends this? You've only lit the fuse." Then he fell. Evelyn leaned against the wall, breathing hard. He wasn't lying. "They'll send more." John reloaded quietly. "Then we'll be ready." But as they turned to leave, Winston appeared, holding a wounded Bowery King. "We can't stay," he said. "The tunnels are collapsing." The sound of rumbling filled the air. Another explosion somewhere deeper below. Evelyn looked at John. "If this is our last stand." He met her eyes. "Then we make it count." Together, they headed toward the exit. 2 figures walking through fire, ready to face whatever waited above. The ruins of Paris burned behind them as John Wick and Evelyn Shaw emerged from the catacombs, covered in dust, blood, and smoke. The city that had once been beautiful was now a battlefield. The high table's men were gone, for now, but they both knew this peace was only a pause, not an ending. The sun was rising over the Seine, golden light cutting through the fog. Evelyn sat on a bench by the river, reloading her pistol with trembling hands. She looked tired but calm, the kind of calm that comes when there's nothing left to lose. John stood beside her, watching the water. "We lost too many," he said quietly. Evelyn nodded. "We always do." Winston and Sophia approached from behind. Winston's coat was torn, and one of Sophia's dogs limped beside her, but they were alive. The Bowery King wasn't with them. He had stayed below to buy them time. "He knew the cost," Winston said softly. "He always did." John gave a small nod. "Then we finish what he started." Evelyn turned to him. "You really think we can destroy the high table?" John's eyes were steady. "Not destroy. Replace. She frowned. Replace. He looked toward the horizon. Someone has to make new rules. Rules that don't kill everyone who follows them. Winston gave a slow, knowing smile. Now that's a dangerous dream, Mr. Wick. Evelyn stood, holstering her weapon. Maybe danger is all we know. For the first time in a long while, John almost smiled. Maybe. Days later, news spread quietly across the underworld. The high table was broken. Their leaders dead, their enforcers scattered. Rumors whispered that a new order was forming. One led not by greed, but by balance. No one knew for sure who led it. Some said it was Winston. Others said the Bowery King survived. But a few whispered about a pair of ghosts, the man they called Baba Yaga and the woman known as the Shadow Queen. Some said they disappeared together, far from the cities and blood and contracts. In truth, they had. Somewhere deep in the mountains, a cabin stood among pine trees and snow. Inside, a small fire burned. John Wick sat by the window, his dog resting at his feet. Evelyn poured 2 cups of coffee and handed him one. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" she asked. John stared into the flames. "Every day." She smiled faintly. "Anne." He looked at her, calm, tired, but alive. "Then I remember we survived." Evelyn nodded, sitting beside him. "For once, that's enough." Outside, the snow began to fall softly, covering the past in white. No more blood. No more contracts. Just silence, peace, and the faint sound of 2 assassins finally free from their ghosts.